starting recording.
All right, we are live, and we just jumped into the regular. If you're used to catching us on the YouTube lives on Thursdays, we've just started the recording that you'll hear on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of that. So this is the August month in review. Where are we at? 28th, right? August the 28th.
Already.
And we have you again, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kyle King is hanging out with us. We have made the announcement that we've lost Adam. He has moved on and transitioned, and we've transitioned in a new co-host, month in review guy, Mr. Kyle King. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for having.
Yeah, man.
I really enjoy this.
You're a senior already, though.
Yeah, twice.
And this is not a start. He was on the episode. What was the title of that, Neil?
Something to do with fraud.
Fraud.
Yeah.
And mental health, maybe
Something like that. Something around those, yeah.
He was here, and he freaked us out about all the computer technology crap that we have to do to protect ourselves, and if you don't do it, you get scammed for money, and what did you say, billions of dollars industry,
yeah,
man.
Yeah, it is. Very much so.
Nuts. So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you get insights from a panel of therapists at home or in your car, knowing it's not delivery of therapy services in any way. As said, this is the month in review, where we review kind of what we talked about and did in August. And it's been an interesting month, actually, because if you followed the show and the history, you know that we have a panel, like I said, John. He comes to me and he says, I need to talk to you. Okay, John. He says, I'm moving. I'm like, oh, okay. Moving to Florida. Also, I'm moving in 2 weeks. So we've had a major transition with Mr. Pope. Rest assured, he is going to stay with us. He's riding it out. So he's going to do virtual everything. So we then had Adam. So we've had a lot of show transitions.
Yeah.
So this month in review is cool because we did a show on grief.
Mm-hmm.
And then John moved, literally. And Victoria and I did a show on managing life transitions. And John came back, and it was like a little bit of a reunion. That was a little bit like weird in the beginning, I think, Neil. Right?
Well, because you guys hadn't seen him in like a week or something, and because you guys see him every day in the office. So yeah, it was like a little reunion.
I was a little bit giddy to hang out with John again, you know, and so we did a show on acceptance as a challenge.
Oh, so you've had it all around this month with everything.
Yeah, it was really themed out around like our little process with John and how rapidly it all was, and kind of, you know, we peppered that all in. So this is a pretty cool month in review, I think, because Kyle's here also, by the way. So subscribe, click. Look, we like to try to entertain you. We want to blow up stereotypes and myths. We want to disseminate information about mental health. That's our job. Your job is really, truly to subscribe. It helps. Click the buttons, the likes, and all that kind of stuff. Particularly with AI, maybe you could tell us how the algorithms work now.
Oh, gosh, I can't tell you.
You guys are both techie guys over there.
Yeah, no, I can't tell you how it works. I can just tell you the things that are happening with it. Yeah. You don't want to know.
5 stars, John always wants. Contact it through therapisteyes.com. Look, this is the human emotional experience, which we do endeavor to figure out together. Hey, we got somebody to welcome, Neil. You want to bang that out? I'm talking too much.
No, you need to, because I don't have it on my notes. You need to do it.
I did add that a little late, didn't I? Welcome to Lisa Denny. She has joined the Through a Therapist's Eyes family, and she is in California. So a little claps for Miss Lisa. Welcome. So I forgot to ask you before we turn the mics on. Do we have a rabbit hole?
You know, I've had a couple of different interesting things that come up this week, and I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, wow, how impactful that is. And it's something you and I talked about at the restaurant the other night, and it got me thinking. I was like, I wonder how much pressure this really puts on people and stresses people out. What about
that
fantasy?
Sounds like a legit rabbit hole, Neil.
What about fantasy football?
No, we're not going to. I'm mad at you, Chris. I'm still mad at you. But
right.
yeah, we
Out
can talk
in
about
public. Tell the world,
we can
Neil,
talk
I'm
about
so
fantasy
sorry.
football.
Go ahead.
See, and there's no prompting. He didn't tell me.
No,
about it.
go ahead, Neil. Bang.
So okay, so in the
all my
league
fault.
that he does, no one does live draft but like him and me, right? And he got his son to do it this year. So Chris said, well, he starts putting on this calendar. He's like, well, we'll just do it Wednesday. I said, well, let's do it this time, but let's do it next week instead of this week. Well, he said, well, we'll do it now because people are complaining because they want their team now. Okay, well then I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Well, I got distracted doing
he said
work.
He said, what?
I'm not fighting with the rest of your people that does it. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. Well, I miss it. He calls me a couple times. I'm on the phone. I'm like, well, he's probably asking about the show tomorrow, blah, blah. And then I get the email like, your Yahoo team's been drafted.
Oh.
I'm like so mad. So
I feel so bad too, honestly.
I wouldn't care, but when it's only like 2 out of the 10 people cared to live draft and I was 50% of the person,
Right.
it's kind of like, but yeah, fantasy football is kind of crazy, right?
It is.
So let me set this up. Adam started this with Down the Rabbit Hole with Adam on the month in reviews, and we've kind of enjoyed it. It's a fun little segment that we do off the get-go where Adam would bring in some sort of crazy random thing, and that's just the way his brain works. He loved it. It fit him perfectly, and I was wondering if we will continue this.
Oh, yeah.
And Kyle is gracious to continue the Through a Therapist Eyes month in review tradition of going down the rabbit hole. Hopefully it has something to do with mental health and whatnot. We try to frame it that way, but these are news stories, these are events, these are things that are in the world that you happen to see and just go down a rabbit hole with, and we get to talk about, for briefly and see what, from a mental health perspective, it really means.
Yeah.
Now, you can't do anything with Trump.
No.
Just kidding. That would be fun.
No. It's an interesting subject because I actually looked at it and it's like, have there been studies on mental health and fantasy football? And there actually has. I'm like,
Okay.
wow.
I'm excited.
Yeah, and it's talking about the stress and anxiety and how veteran players are less stressed and anxious, and less experienced players, they're more stressed, more anxious, and especially when you throw money into the mix, or I guess the punishment if you were the biggest loser of the fantasy football
I got to
team,
jump in.
right?
I'm bursting. I got to say, where would I fit into this thing as you set this up? Being the 2-time in a row champion.
Well, see, you're the
going for
veteran player, right?
three-peat.
Yeah, so you have no stress, no
Yes.
anxiety, right?
My son beat me last year, so now I'm starting over.
But it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to read about. And then I read about the benefits of it. It's like, oh, well, your social aspects, the cognitive aspects. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting to think about. It's like you never really put that together. It's like, yeah, you're getting out there, you're interacting, and you're happy, right? Endorphins, it creates all those happy thoughts and stuff like that. But also can create that negative thoughts, and you're sitting there watching your team every Sunday, or you're stressing over it. Who do I put in? Who do I take out?
It has potential of ruining a football game.
It really could, right? And then you see, like Adam Thielen getting traded to the Vikings from the Panthers just yesterday. It's like,
boy.
now that's going to mess up teams, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So there's all
There's
kinds
a
of
lot
stuff.
there. I'll tell you, interestingly enough, where my brain goes, okay, this is not, let me be very clear, addiction.
Right.
People get into online gaming addictions, and that is a real thing. So we talk about addiction on the show. We have gambling addiction, eating addictions, sexual addictions, and actually the World Health Organization represents the WHO, online video gaming addictions is a real thing. People will spend 16 hours in a 24-hour period doing this, okay? But this is not that. I want to make that clear with social media and whatnot. However, it is fascinating to think of what you're talking about in this way when obviously fantasy football is not a video game, but I'm a gamer. I like games. I play video games. And I have been shocked because I spent 10 years not playing video games when I was like Mr. Dad and doing everything Dad. And I got back into it. And, do you play video games?
Oh, yeah.
And Neil, I know you do too, right?
Not the same ones.
Huh?
I play differently. I play gotcha games and stuff. I don't do the actual first-person games or those different things.
What is a gotcha game? What does that even mean?
You can look it up. It's you basically it's your Star Wars games is actually a gotcha game.
Oh, okay.
So it's like that. I play those kind of games. I don't do
build
like
up your gear and
right. I don't do the Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty, those types of things. I don't do those first-person shooters or those types of games.
That's probably good. I'll tell you why. Because, for you, if you don't know video games, there's what's called campaigns. You play the game, you kind of go.
That's
through the
typically
story.
what I do. Yeah.
And that's fine. And that's good. But you get to the end of the campaign, you're done with the game.
Yeah.
Dude, I found this thing called StarCraft, and I played StarCraft forever. Years. I went on and on and on with this, and I'm like, what is going on with this? And I realized what is fundamentally different is when you are gaming with another human being. You are in another level of endorphin and intensity and grab you, and that's where the addiction stuff does lie in. because you are competitive and you're
Right.
you're literally against somebody. So, yeah, man, you're absolutely on point. When I play my brother in fantasy football, that's a different week.
Yeah, it is.
So there's a lot here.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation you could have.
So,
It is.
so go ahead. Oh, I thought you had thoughts. So what kind of studies did you see on this? What did you get?
What was
from
it?
that?
Queen Mary over there? I think it was in British. I think it was some journal over there that I was reading about it. And but yeah, I was reading through some of the abstracts and some of the summaries of it, and it was really interesting. Some of the things that came out of it is just how many people they studied. I think it was like 630 some people that they studied, and the different interactions. From beginner to expert, the levels of stress that it created, having to maintain all those teams, because you also got to think, back to the cognitive aspect. It's like you're doing so much analytics with the mind.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
If
looking
you
at
care.
Right, if you care.
If you care. There are some
Otherwise,
that
you could do
don't,
the
man.
auto, right? Everybody could do the auto and be happy, but, is
Neil,
that really what
I'm so
you
sorry.
want to do?
I'm so sorry. I couldn't resist it, man.
But yeah, that's the thing. That's kind of the things they were talking about, and but it can create stress. It can create anxiety, just because you're doing something that competitive edge. You want to win. You want to beat that veteran person. Even as a newcomer, you want to beat that veteran. You want to be in the top 2, top 3, whatever.
Neil has said his whole purpose was that I not win. Do I recall that correctly?
That's always my purpose. Is I always try to win in anything I do. So, but yeah, if you lose, that's better.
Yes.
So, but no, I think the interesting part about when you look at it is like I think about when I started fantasy football back in junior year in high school. Right, I've been playing for 25 plus years now. When
That's
Yahoo
awesome.
was, and I'm thinking like those first few years, you just don't like it's. You auto draft early. You learn. I drafted Kurt Warner, and I blew away the league that year because Kurt Warner came out of nowhere, and that was like the best draft, like everything. But then, you go through your emotions of being like, oh, it's easy. You get your routines, and then I started doing live drafting.
Right.
It just upped the anxiety for that first little bit, right? So it's always fun as you do this, as you either get more teams or you go with a new group or you do like there's always that thing you can do to make it more exciting again, right? And so that's what's fun about it, right? You can do those things, and then you get in your lulls. I got my systems. I know how to pick my players. I know how to do that. If people let me pick my players, those types of things. So,
Fair.
but no, I think fantasy football. I think 1 year I did all 3 major sports, and like so it was just a whole year of fantasy for me, and I was like, okay, this was a little bit too much.
Right.
So, and that's the risk, right? You
It
get where
is.
you get 10 teams, you do different sports, and I think the addiction problems when you start getting to the money side, or you go into the the fan duels and all those ones that
Oh,
you
it's-
start
it's
betting
endless.
on everything.
Endless.
So there's that
I'm very
difference,
concerned
right?
on the online betting platforms.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's terrible.
But yeah, I think fantasy football is great. I think it can be very stressful, but I think it also be very fulfilling, very fun,
It is.
especially if you have some good group that you're in a league with. So
Well, and it's also good because like my group, we text constantly. And we text, it's friendly banter back and forth. It's like, your team sucks. Your team sucks. It's like, my gosh, how in the world did that person get 170 points? I know, I got beat by one person getting so many points 1 year. But those are the kinds of friendly things that it's that camaraderie that we're building with the
absolutely
friends.
community.
And it's great. It's fun.
Absolutely community. And I think I could do something from a mental health perspective with this as well. Sharing, like, you're right. I was listening to you, Neil. It's like the live draft is different. I literally have, and I can use the word anxiety with it. I recall, like, getting home, like I was stressed for time, and I was like, oh my gosh, and then I was worried about Neil. Honestly, it was like, I got to make sure that's good, and I wanted to get people on the phone, and ended up. I mean, it's fine, but it's just there's energy to it. There's that anxious energy from a mental health perspective. We can normalize that.
Yeah.
Like, people hear that word and they're like, oh my God, Chris has anxiety. No. It's an anxiety reality that is normal and is something that we all experience pretty universally, tied to different things, albeit. But yeah, fantasy football can be nerve-wracking.
It can. So that's my
fun.
rabbit hole.
Well done, sir. I think Adam will be proud. Adam, we love you, buddy. Shout out to you. He's probably listening.
I got some big shoes to fill, so
You're gonna do fine. If you bring football, man, you're good. There is literally a South Florida football game on right now.
Yeah.
College football tonight
I
is
know.
exploding.
I know.
The long wait is finally
And we got
over.
what, LSU and Clemson this weekend. That's going to be an exciting match.
All right, we've totally lost all the
Doesn't
non-football
Ohio State play
people.
Texas too?
I think you're right. Yep.
That'll be a good game.
At Ohio State, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a good weekend. But we've lost all the non-football people. So
Yeah.
let's bring it back to Grief Sucks, episode 322. I mean, that is so true, just simply said, right? The 3 questions that we did is, what loss are you still grieving, and how does it affect your daily life? Because people don't realize it is like with you. Secondly, how do you feel when others say things like, at least, or, you know, time heals all wounds? Oh, Victoria and I hate that one. It's like, ugh. And then what small act of self-care can help you today amidst grief? So what do you think about grieving? What do you think about the show? It was weird, Neil, because we were like literally like, I mean, we're okay, but like John's leaving us. We're talking about it.
Yeah, and that was one of the funny things about this month is because you did play it very well with the transitions and your like it's almost like you planned it. It was such a good job. You got John to move to Florida at the right time, and then you planned the shows right. It was great. But no, it was because I'm looking at the notes. You talk about like pre-grieving, right? That stuff with John. You know, John's leaving, or you know, we're dealing with that with my family right now because my wife, her aunt has cancer. How
boy.
she's still alive,
Right.
I don't know. Because, I mean, it's really bad. And by the time she finally got to the doctor, they looking like, well, we just can't do anything about it. But that's been like 4 or 6 months. It's like we're just waiting to see. But she's slow. Every time we go see her, it's always getting worse. And so we've kind of been able to pre-grieve. But you can't really fully do that until it actually happens, I don't think. So life is really hard in those things. But, yeah, I think with John leaving, knowing that he's not in here with you, like I said, once again, there's a difference between me on my weekly show and then you and Victoria, who
Yeah.
sees him every
Every
day.
day, yeah.
Every day. And now it comes in. Now the office is probably
Oh my God, it's
little less.
so weird to have the light on in the office. I had a student using the office. It's like he has these soft lighting stuff, soft lamps, and it was like, oh my God, it's bright in there. That's not normal. It's not okay. You know, where's John anyway? You know, the pre-grieving thing, I want to comment a little bit about that because this is a different, I haven't really thought a lot about or worked a lot with that because you're right. Where traditionally I've taken the stance or, you know, we kind of know that your frontal cortex is in the front of your brain, and that little nugget, if you can see on the camera, like this is your brain, that little nugget on the top of the brainstem is the emotion center. 2 totally different elements of how the brain works, and they have totally different processes. They communicate and talk together, but you have pre-grieving. It is a thing, but I've always said that you cannot grieve until the actual loss has happened. And I've always used the example of my dog getting older. I love Magnum, you know, and I always thought, like, what's it going to be like when he dies? Will I cry? Will I be upset? Will I get a new dog? What will that be like? You know, you can wonder about that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was as though I had no idea my dog was about to die when we had to put him down. It was the emotions kicked in. It was brand new. Never knew this was going to happen, and I was just like, I was horrible. I will never forget that ride to the vet that day. So the thing is though, this pre-grieving, and I don't know that there's a lot out about it. I'd be curious to kind of, you know, see if it's much of a thing because I've never really.
I don't know if you think about it.
Well, I've never seen a conference on it. I've never really had any study on it. I've never had any kind of readings that I've seen. It's just in my travels through mental health, it's a non-issue. It's a non-thing. And I defaulted to the position I just kind of went with. But, yeah, I'll tell you, for example, you know, now that this is out to the world or whatever, you know, my ex was telling me that she was done with the marriage and whatever, and she was at the house for 6 months. Like, that was a long time, right? And that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about with your aunt. You know this is going to happen. Is that grieving? It's a new concept for me, sort of.
Well, like I said, I'm looking at the timeline. Like when we found out, or she found out, because we had a thought process. Like she's like had this lump, blah blah blah, and like you need to go get that looked at. Finally, like so when they came back from the doctors, and she's like, yes, I have cancer. It's really bad, blah blah blah. Which like, well, yeah, we knew. there's that initial shock, right? So you almost start grieving because you know that's the start of
that your emotion center started.
right. And because I know what it was like at the house. I know what it was like with my wife, because her aunt, it was basically like a second mom. She lived with her as a teenager. She spent a lot of time. She's been a part of their life. It's a big thing. This is going to suck for everyone. I joke that she's my favorite of that side of the family, and she kind of is. But it's just, you can prepare for it, but just like the dog, because we had to put our dog down like 2 years ago. You see the signs. You watch them deteriorate. You watch those things. And then, but still, when we had to put Kip down, the whole family just sucks the life out of you. Now, granted, once again, if we came home and he was just dead out of the blue, it'd be different, right? Same thing if they get hit by a car. If you're, our neighbor down the road, like we hadn't seen him in a while. Finally, we talked to the neighbor, like, oh yeah, he got diagnosed with cancer. 30 days later, he was dead. And it's like, it's such a weird thing, and it's like you just don't know. So there's always that difference, right? When you get the opportunity to pre-grieve, I feel like it has to help a little bit, at least something. If you actually pre-grieve, if you actually process it and try to understand it, or at least get closure in the piece, I think it does help. But it's not gonna heal you, right? You practice for your football. They practice. They go through their drills until you're out there at the game. You're not gonna really know what it's really like. It's that same thing, right? So I do think pre-grieving is important, and I think that's because I think our society likes to avoid things.
Well, and I'll throw a perspective in here. So my brother passed away 25 years ago now, cancer at the age of 14.
Oh my God.
So
that sucks.
Never would have called it pre-grieving, but we knew the time was coming. So I got the opportunity to sit with him and have a meaningful conversation with him before it happened. And I'm so thankful that I did, because I remember that conversation still. And, but, hearing the pre-grieving, does that help? Did it help, when that time actually came? I don't know, because my focus was on my parents.
Yeah, I don't think it
trying
does.
to help them through.
Yeah, I don't think it does. And that's a really wonderful example. Thank you for sharing that, because, I think there's different tasks. Like, if you think of the word grieving, and the reason why grief sucks is because, and we talked about this on this episode 322 in depth, you're experiencing all of the things that are depression oriented, right? And we listed all those things. They're kissing cousins. Like, grief experience is a whole lot like depression when somebody has it. And so that's what you're dealing with. We almost need a different word, I feel like, than pre-grieving, because grieving really is dealing with, I don't have an appetite. Interesting things aren't interesting. I can't freaking sleep well. I am irritable. My sex drive just dropped. These are the depression experiences. And grieving, by definition, is dealing with that, and you just can't have that before an event.
But
so, yeah.
I'm going to go back to the segment. Knowing what happened with my wife and her mom, once they found out their aunt had, Joyce had cancer, and it got serious, and they went through very similar things as what you just stated. My wife went through loss of appetite. She went through couldn't sleep. She went through, and like I said, it wasn't even, once again, Joyce is still here, but the finality hits, right? So they are able to process it some with the idea knowing that this is coming down the road, because there's a finality.
Things, though. You know what that means to me is two different grieving events. And we have so many. Like, Victoria and I really made that point clear. I mean, you know, with all the different examples, I grieved when I left West Virginia. I grieved when my kids left home. I grieved. I'm grieving as I'm turned 50. I'm like,
God, you're old.
Yeah, you lose stuff, and that. So honestly, it's not pre-grieving. I'm changing my view with that as we speak. It's grieving the event of finding out this terrible news. You will also then grieve when, presumably, if she dies. Those are just two different grieving events. That's all it is.
No, I would agree. I think that's
honestly.
a good perspective, because I mean, honestly, after my brother, my focus was on my parents and to get them through things, to help them not get into that real bad state of depression.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably 2 weeks before I actually sat down and everything just came flooding in. Right?
Yeah.
It took that long.
And flooding is the absolute total word.
Yeah.
So let's move a little bit with, you know, do you remember the handout, Neil, that we talked about with, you know, the different process, the tasks of grieving, rather than everyone talks about, you know, have you ever heard of the 5 stages of grief? I'm sure, Kyle.
Oh,
right?
sure.
Right? Yeah. Do you remember much that was on the handout? I'm curious what you think about the tasks rather than the 5 stages.
I don't think I saw the handout.
I didn't bring it out. That's a reminder to me.
So then how would I have seen it if you
Because
didn't
we
bring
talked
it out?
about it, I think. I'm hoping we didn't fail to do that, to be honest with
You
you.
probably did. I probably got distracted when you guys were talking about it.
That's possible. I don't know. Do you remember the tasks? I guess I'm wondering.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm seriously wondering if I totally failed. I really hope I didn't, because this was transformational in a conference that I went to years ago. It was actually a conference for chronic relapsing addicts. And they specialized in this, and their training was about this. And basically, the whole training was a different process of grieving. So I don't even think about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross 5 stages anymore. To me, that's
Okay.
so inadequate. Because these guys listed down tasks that you do when you're going through the process of dealing with all the things that you feel post a loss. And so I'm not going to go all the way through it, but you do tasks like, one, you identify the loss, but you know, it's not just that, you know, Magnum, my dog, died. It's Magnum, my dog, died, and he's not going to be around here in the future when, you know, my second son is born. My young son's not going to meet the dog. All the different things that are also associated to that need to be identified, and then you identify the meaning of the loss. So different things mean different things to you, and if you don't identify that, so that's a task that you have to do.
Right.
Celebrate the beauty of the bond before the loss. They highlighted that's a task. We now call it celebration of life, right? So you're, and this was way before we did celebrations of life. Honestly, you're really celebrating the relationship that you had. You know, I celebrate the relationship with West Virginia. I'm a big Mountaineer fan, and God, I love the state. Right, and then you have rituals, you carry it out with people present. Those are the big highlights of the tasks that you're due grieving. And in therapy, I will take each one of those tasks and walk through the process where I give a piece of paper to each one of those tasks, and you just jot and you work through, and it's like, it's so much better than like, oh yes, you get angry and then you get depressed and then you go bargaining and then you go through the stages. There's things that we need to actually do. So I just think that's a really different way of looking at the grieving process.
That's good. It's almost like journaling, kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But and I think the important part is you're helping people, you're guiding people through this thing, because I think my biggest show journaling is you just give me a blank piece of paper. I'm not a journaler, so that's one of the things that just takes time. And I think I'm gonna try to start doing that over the next little bit. I'm trying to challenge myself to journal some. But I think the fact that you can guide your patients through, like, okay, like I said, I'm thinking about what you said. I'm thinking about an addict who has their triggers to get them back into addiction. Well, what are the triggers that spawns your emotional episodes when you're grieving, right? We think about our dog. My wife will be like, expect the dog by the couch because that's where he laid, and you kind of forget about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so you think about those triggers, and so helping people understand those things and then help them work through and process it, because we've talked about many times, if you want to go through something, you have to retell it. You have to live it again so it becomes less of a stress. Going back to fantasy football.
Perfect.
The more you do fantasy football, the less anxiety you have, right? The more you go through your grieving, you process it over and over again. And if you can help guide them through that, we're in a safe space where they can write it down and kind of see what they're doing, it's really, really powerful. And I think, once again, as you write down, it allows you to feel those emotions in a controlled state, right? That's a
And is
big
that
key.
not okay? to
Absolutely.
do?
But, I mean, going back
People
to your,
don't do it. They don't
your
want to.
example is leaving West Virginia. Think about all the things, the good things, and you had to grieve because you're losing some of those
yeah.
things, right? But now you remember how happy you were doing those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think that's part
Well,
of
these
it.
folks down here have a little bit of a different culture, I'll tell you that. it's a very different cultural reality. And it's beautiful. It's cool,
Right.
but I definitely miss that. I mean, when I
Yeah,
get into
yeah.
the state, man, it's my people. It's that it's home. It's very.
Well, they're mostly your family, so
Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
all right. At least the old co-host Craig Graves isn't here to tell the teeth brush joke.
Uh-oh.
He would tell a West Virginia joke. It was the same daggum joke every time. It's the only one the kid knew. Why is the teeth brush? We know it wasn't invented in West Virginia because otherwise it would be called the
Tooth.
Yeah, whatever. Good Lord. Thanks for that, Neil. Appreciate it. All right, what do we do to cope? What do we do to maintain? I mean, we're just spitballing it. How do you guys, recall the many grieving experiences that you had? I mean, answering the question, what loss are you still grieving? How does it affect your daily life? Like, do we really realize that these things that we're grieving, like, years later are still with us?
Oh yeah. I mean, you hear a song or something on the radio, right? It takes you back. It's something that somebody says, or a memory, or a picture, or something that pops up on the screen, on your laptop screen, or whatever. It takes you back. So you always remember, but I don't know if it's necessarily putting you back in the mindset of grieving, but maybe just remembering, for me at least.
It can. And I want to suggest that is an opportunity that you want to take advantage of. This phrase just popped in. I was listening to you, and I was like, oh, that's a cool phrase. So I get to say it out loud where what did you say? I created it unfreezes.
Yeah.
Instead of resurfaces, sometimes it'll unfreeze what you've kind of frozen, compartmentalized, suppressed, or even repressed.
That's a good,
right?
Good way to phrase it.
To use fancy terms. Yeah. But it comes back with a fury, and I think people oftentimes are very surprised and are fearful, terrified of that. Therefore, they'll maybe see the trigger, refreeze it real quick again.
Like, it's just like how a smell can take you back to bring back a memory, right? Those kinds of things.
Absolutely. And people, I'm afraid, will reconstitute their compartmentalization of it just like that fast. Like they don't want to feel those things. But again, if you don't, you'll carry it for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm. I think the important thing you mentioned in this show was you talk about the layers of grief, and that if you don't process the grief, the next time you have another one, it just compounds on itself. And so I think that's what people don't understand is when they go through those types of situations, when something happens traumatic to them, if you don't at least partially address it, then you have another thing and another thing. Our lives are not, aren't perfect. We're always going to have something we're going to be grieving. And if you don't take the time to process each step, it's going to get so much harder every time because you have this buildup and this buildup. So like you said, our human nature is we freeze it, we shut it down and compartmentalize it. And then next thing that comes through, we've talked about like the emotional closet, right? You keep shoving your stuff in there. If you don't ever clean that closet out, it's going to become worse and worse. And so I think that was so important you mentioned on the show was that the importance of dealing with previous grief so the current grief or the next grief doesn't overwhelm you and doesn't freeze you and it doesn't put you in depression. It doesn't lead you down those major road problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, bringing that back to the forefront. Because Kyle, I think it's my term that I called it layering. I think of it even as like numbers. The very first grieving event you have, you might process it, deal with it, let go of it, accept it. The whole month of review that we're doing here, do all of those things. You start out with 100%, and it first begins, you might do a lot, and you get it down to like, I only have 20% of energy. So when I hear that smell, the smell? When I smell the smell or hear the sound that triggers me, I'm only feeling 20% of that energy because I've let go of the rest. Right. And that becomes 18. But the second loss, if you've kept it at like, I only touched base with it and I got 80% left, well, now you've got a new grieving event plus that 80. When you do that 5, 7, 10 times, you got what? 80 plus 70 plus 60 plus 40 plus 80 plus 60, like of all the previous things. And you just put your dog down.
And at some point, it's going to reach a breaking point.
Yes. That's the truth. And we see that. I mean, I've had people that are really, really distraught. Like I got a couple people in therapy right now that like, the divorce was, I want to say like 10 years ago again. It's even hard for me to fathom, but yeah, it was like it was yesterday. And it's inconsolable experience with this pain is what ultimately is happening. So we have a lot of grief to do, grief work. So, yeah, Neil, good stuff. We We need to wrap up and move to the other ones, I guess. But what do we do to cope? What do we do to manage? We got listed stuff. Allowing yourself to maintain the routines, kind of get back into, things that are normal, even though they don't feel normal. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I just don't have time. Definitely check out 322 to get that done. But there is one important thing that I want to highlight that I've said for thousands of times. Enemy number one to depression is isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Well, we've just said that grieving something is a kissing cousin, part the West Virginia expression, Neil. Kissing cousin to depression is grieving.
Right.
So might we really say, it's kind of new for me, I've never really said it, but I'm going to start saying enemy number one to grieving is also isolation.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do not want to be alone when you're going through this stuff.
No.
It's exponentially harder, more painful, lasts longer, it's vicious.
And I've seen a lot of people that will go through that grieving process and they have no one and they
Right.
go down that spiral of depression and it's hard for them to get out and then they turn to other things.
And now you compound it.
Right.
Sure. Drink,
Right.
all the negative coping skills, go get promiscuous, buy stuff you can't afford,
Right.
just to cope. Being alone with this stuff is very ill-advised. Now, it's okay to be solitude. It's okay to be alone. I'm not saying avoid that at all costs. Because you need, my brother, when my grandma died, he went off by himself. I wasn't very happy about that. I was like, well, I want to be together. Like, where did you go? But I also recognized, well, that's what he needed to do
Mm-hmm.
for his process. There's no wrong or right. Be alone for sure. But be very aware, isolation's different than being alone. We have two words for a reason.
Right.
So we don't want to isolate. We can be in solitude, but be very careful about that. Closing thoughts, comments. Episode 22, Grief Sucks. Or we move on.
Move on.
2. Episode 323, How to Handle Life Transitions. Yeah, that was just Victoria and I we were right in the middle of our own little thing. So that was, I don't know, it was a bit strange without John that day, Neil. It was like, dude. So the 3 questions: what recent change, big or small, has left you feeling unsettled or uncertain? When faced with change, do you tend to resist, adapt, or embrace it? Ugh, well, how about that? And then questions of why. And then thirdly, what support systems or coping strategies have you found most helpful during the transitions? Notice, enemy number one to grieving is isolation. So what support systems, plural, right?
Right.
How about transitions in life? How do we handle them? What do we do? How'd that show go?
I thought it went really well. And I think the timing of it, not only with your show, but as we talked about in the thing, but like it's school time, right? There's a lot of transitions in school times. We had the issue last year because Mason went to college first year at Western Carolina last year. This year is a little bit different
Good
because
school,
we've
by the
done
way.
it's my wife went there for a year. She loved it. We're going back.
I loved it so much I left it. I had to leave it because I partied too much.
They've
Yeah.
never,
Well,
they've
that's-
never even beaten West Virginia in a football game. Oh, wait, they don't play football game for anyway, sorry.
Yeah, but they have the best band in the mountains.
They do.
Only today because your kid's in it. That's I'll give you that one. I'm not going too far.
But no, that was a big thing, right? So when we did the show, that's a big transition for a lot of families, right? Whether it's your kid going into kindergarten, middle school, high school, moving out to college. Those are a lot of changes that happens because you get that person in your life. You're not losing them, but you're losing them, right? So it's a very hard transition that you have that a lot of families go through. And it's, it was very good. It was very fitting, like I said, for the show with John leaving, which once again, it was weird having you two on the show, knowing that John really wasn't coming back,
I know.
as opposed to he's just busy this week.
I know. Yes, it was so strange. But what's interesting? I think you're right. I'm glad you said it that way because I'm sitting here trying to calculate out the timing of things, and I honestly feel like I had this month lined up before I even knew about John, because I knew that it was school starting, kids going to college, and I usually try to think about like what's good for us to be thinking about in the world. Oh my gosh, and I forgot to do the current event. what's going on in the world is a lot of people are going through life transitions. Yeah. Ugh. I don't know much about it. I'll just kind of, we're well in, and time's always an issue for us. So I'll just kind of give a mention. What a horrible set of events that we had up in, was it Minneapolis, Minnesota? I forget the town. I don't feel like it was Minneapolis.
I think it was up in Minnesota somewhere.
It was definitely
Minnesota
Minnesota,
somewhere,
yeah. I feel like it was close to the big city. But anyway, yet another school shooting, another horrifying reality. Little kids praying in church pews getting shot. It's just, I don't know. Wow.
Those parents. Just can't imagine.
Horrifying.
Mm.
And talk about grieving and talking about loss. I mean, hopefully these shows in a small way can be helpful to people. So please do share. Please, if you know anybody in that area are affected, I would love for them to be with us, that we can kind of walk through it together. That's the name of the show, right? The human emotional experience, which we endeavor to figure out together. We need to come together. I mean, we say these after all these school shootings or whatever, but this just seems like a little elevated by the nature of the events.
Yeah.
It's just, what, did we actually break new ground here? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
So maybe just a mention to that. Now that I've depressed us, Neil, what do we do? How do we proceed? Save me. The 3 phases of transition were kind of interesting that we talked about in episode 323. I hadn't really come across it, but it was almost kind of akin to like the grief handout that I use now. He identified like this process of literally when you're going through any of these types of life changes, you start with ending, losing, and letting go. This thing is really, it's the grieving process. We just talked about that a little bit at length. So, you have to deal with this transition by letting go. And then secondly, you move into a whole different phase, and he calls that the neutral zone. And it's a period of ambiguity and confusion where the old has ended, but the new hasn't really yet begun. I mean, you almost can think of that as the pre-grieving that we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different phase, it's a different stage, and I think that's, in some ways I'm living that. And then 3, the new beginning, right? The embracing new opportunities and identities. The new transition, actually fully concludes. Yeah. So you got the end, you got the neutral, and then you got like the beginning, and those are very distinctly different.
They are, and I think of, to Neil's point, all these parents that are, their kids who are at least my age, the parents are losing their kids to college.
And how old are your kids?
Oh, they're way out. They're way outside. So we got, so they're, one getting ready to be 35, one's 33, and then we got a 21-year-old. So yeah, they're all at the house.
Have a spread.
But now I will tell you, here's what we found is now we're empty nesters, and a lot of our friends are going through that phase right now.
Oh yeah,
and it's kind of funny. Get the new people that are in that phase. They're devastated. Their routine's messed up. They're not going to see them every day. They're not at home. They're not helping them with their homework, et cetera, right? They're not going to football games. But then, so they're crying. They're upset.
Yeah.
They're not going to be there.
And what are you doing while they're crying, Kyle?
And then but then you start to see the transition. I got one friend is, miss the kids to death. Happy when they come home, but after so long of being at home, they're like, okay, when school start back?
This is a good thing, Buddy Roo.
But they also get into the point, like what we've done is we started to travel a little bit more.
Yeah.
And, it works out for us. So is the drama level dropped way down? And then our relationship obviously blossomed, and then obviously we get to do a little bit more. It does.
There's many. It's an excellent example of transitions. Yeah, I'm empty nested big time now as well, and I mean, my little kiddo is in the Navy. I'm very proud. He's serving us.
Oh, thank you.
Yasuoka, Japan. He's on base there. Thankfully, he's not on a boat. But man, I tell you what, Neil, when he came home, I'm like, this is a different way of living.
Yeah.
Wow, because he came home for like a month, and he was really at my house, not his mom's house most of the time, because he needed to be familiar. I mean, he was really, he needed to do that. I mean, the towels were on the floor
Yeah.
again. I mean, I was just amazed. 2 gallons of milk in like 3 days, y'all.
Grown boy.
How is that possible? Yes. Yes.
Oh.
So
Well, we did the same thing with Mason this year, right? He was
Yeah.
off this last year. He comes
All
back,
summer,
and it's
right?
like, yeah, all summer he comes back. Of course, he was working most of it, trying to replenish his bank account, but it's still, you don't realize when that person's gone. You're like, oh, we built a new norm,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And it's like, wait, now our norm's no longer normal. And
Absolutely.
now this year was weird because Helene happened this last fall, so he was only gone for like a month or so, and he came back for like 3 weeks,
Oh.
which was weird
Right.
Wait a minute. What?
because of Helene being up in Western Carolina. They shut classes down for like a month.
Oh, smoke.
So
That's
he
right.
so he came home. Luckily, the campus was fine. There was no problems.
We
Like,
didn't really talk about that a lot.
but once again, he wasn't really affected by it because
Yeah.
Western was like outside of losing a cell phone. They have their own like generators, food, like they had everything. But yeah, so it was weird this summer when he came back, and it's like, oh wait, you don't realize what it's like when that other person's back in the house. And once again,
I
it's
know
really
you noticed
weird.
that grocery bill.
Not for him. He's not that bad.
Really?
Yeah, he really isn't. He's
A
not
college
horrible.
kid getting his freshman 15?
Thi-
Come on.
This,
what are you talking
this
about?
kid, he's not your typical kid. He still weighs like 120. I don't know how he does
Oh,
it.
wow.
Yeah, that's what he wrestled in high school, and he's like, he just stays there. Like both my kids have my wife's metabolism. Like
Neil,
me,
tell him he doesn't have to cut weight anymore.
we tell him all the time, but then
Jeez.
our 16-year-old's trying to bulk up, so he's like 122 now.
Oh,
You know?
I'm rooting for him. Hey, the younger brother beating down the bigger brother. I'm always for it.
Yeah,
I
he
live that.
needs the weight to combat that one. He's not as
Yes.
mean.
But our oldest daughter, she worked for a cruise ship after she graduated high school or college, sorry, and she would be gone 6-8 months,
Oh, yeah.
maybe a year, and then she'd come home, and they'd have these contracts where she'd be home for 6 months, and of course that was to your point, that was a big change.
Why are you here?
Yeah, I mean, 2 hours in, everything's on the floor.
Why do they do that, Kyle? I don't
Drinks everywhere.
understand.
Putting dishes in the
Put
dishwasher
it in the
is not a
garbage.
thing.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things.
You know what? I'll take it from the kitchen sink to the
Right.
to the washing machine.
Right.
I'll take care of that. Just get it in here. Yeah. There's so much of that, and yeah, you know, it's interesting when you have these transition in and then back and then in and then back. You know, we can look at that as domestic violence, for instance. You know, people will get out of that, then back in, and they get sucked back in, and then they get out, and it's like, you know, so you can honestly do repetitive transitions too. That's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, that occurs to me. So where did we land? The things that we talk about. You know, I mean, you hear on the show too, like things that build on each other. You know, how do you deal with grieving? Well, you know, get the routines together. Like, you know, do some journaling. You mentioned earlier, Kyle. You know, with this, I kind of listed some other things but they're all interchangeably working together to help you cope.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're dealing with life transitions, though, maybe a little bit of a highlight is small goals. Like, just do little things, because when you go through a transition, everything feels new, everything feels off, nothing's right, everything's wrong. Like, just stop, slow down, and figure one real small thing that I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm moving from one house to another, I always, like, I don't think of, like, all of the boxes, all of the items, all of the things. I just literally get into an enjoyment on, I'm taking this one box. Just, I want this box done. Let's put it in the drawers. Let's find homes, like, you know. And then I'll be up till 2 o'clock in the morning, like, because I'm excited to get things right.
You accomplished something.
I'm accomplishing many things,
Right.
one after the other, after the other, after the other. Because it's a small goal. If it's just one box, I could do that in 10 minutes. I'm not even that tired. But now I've celebrated that success, and I got into another box. And then I did a whole room. Like, it just builds.
Yeah.
So transitions can be very overwhelming, and the antidote really is breaking things down. But there's other things, focusing on past transitions, highlighting your positive self-talk, cultivating flexibility.
I think the focusing on past transitions is super important, because I think a lot of people are afraid of transition because they don't know what to expect going, like, what's next. And I think if you look back, say, oh, well, I've changed jobs before, or I've moved before, I've done this. Like sometimes you see them like, oh, I made it through fine. Like, okay, well, what did I do to help me with that time, right? I think focusing on past transitions helps you with your current transition because you get to experience it again, or you can learn from what you did the previous time. And I think that's super important because I think just a lot of people, once again, anxiety can make transitions a lot harder. Well, if you go back and say, oh, I've done this before. Okay, well, how did I do that? I moved before and this is how I unpacked and it worked better for me. So versus having all the boxes and do them all the time, right? That's a huge thing. I think it really helps them understand that if you just focus, past good or bad transitions, you can learn a lot from.
There's a friend of the show, Casey, an old panelist that used to be on the show. Hey, Casey, how you're doing well. She loved to talk about internal resiliency. You just described the process of developing internal resiliency, which Victoria has taken up the mantle on. That's her big deal. She loves that concept. Confidence. If I handled this, I can handle that. Or if I handled that, I can handle this.
Well, and I think support system too. Go back to that support system.
Love that.
Because talking about transition from one job to another, something as simple as that. Well, you had nobody over there at that new job. So how do you gain confidence in your role at that new job? You want to make acquaintances. You want to start building that relationship with somebody there. Mm-hmm. Gain that trust.
That first day of lunch at that new place is probably the most scary thing even for an adult, right?
It's almost like old school. You got these cliques.
Who do I go to lunch? Where do I sit? Right. Which table do I sit at? Is this allowed? It's it's
you
crazy.
You would think that's a teenage thought, but no, man, absolutely.
So that first time was like, someone might go to lunch by themselves for the first few days just to kind of get used to it. And then finally they get, someone breaks the ice. Hey, we're going to go eat at this place. You want to come with us? Like, I'm part of the
right. Yeah. I'm part of the group. Absolutely. I mean, listen, if you're sitting there at home thinking, "Oh, I don't feel that way. That doesn't affect me." No, you're not paying attention. That is pretty universal and very true. For sure. Yeah. No. Good stuff. Good points. We need to move to episode 324, where we talked about the challenge of acceptance. I really feel like it's an awesome little capstone to the things that we were talking about all month, because this is a huge one. I mean, this is really a big deal, I feel like. And it's you'll know that you've accomplished this by really paying attention to the way that you feel. Like, I don't know, can we say like acceptance just equals peace? Like when you get into a place where you're really like, okay, I'm not fighting this, I'm going with it. You find serenity, I think, in that space.
Sounds like stoicism.
True. Indeed.
I watched that episode last night.
Did you? That was a weird one, man. We didn't know anything. We're like,
it goes back. It goes back to like if you're at the beach and you get caught in a riptide, what do they tell you to do?
Absolutely.
You let it pull you out. Just accept your fate.
Yep.
And then eventually you get deep enough that the riptide goes, and then you can come around and swim away from it, right?
You cannot sit there and fight it.
Same idea, right? That's the same thing with grieving and transitions. A lot of times you don't control when you grieve, and you don't control when transitions happen. No. You just have to learn to accept it and then push through it, right? You have to learn, not really push it, but like let it happen, and then what do you do once you reassess and figure out where you're going with it, right? That's
when you don't allow it to happen and you fight it, you will fight it forever. Because you can't control it. You're right.
I read a book a long time ago, and I still love this book. It relates to the business world more than anything. So called "Who Moved My Cheese?"
Oh yes,
love that book.
Conferences on that.
And the reason why is just because it teaches you how to accept and deal with things.
100%.
And you can hem and haw all day long because you don't like change, or you can embrace it and you can grow with it. And that's what I think that book teaches you a lot. And because, at that time, the company I was working for was going through a big transition, getting bought out by, we were getting bought out by another company. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of like uncertainty, what's going to happen. And it's, okay, we can either like fight against this, or we can go with it and we can grow with it. And, so I think a lot of people took the perspective as like, okay, we're going to grow with it. If we fight it, we're not going to end up in a good spot. So that's when I think, to your point with the riptide, if you fight it, you're not going to end up in a good spot. But if you embrace it and learn how to deal with it, then you can grow as a person.
And you get the benefits.
Yeah.
I mean, and the benefits are new.
Mm-hmm.
What do we say with this guy? William Bridges came up with the idea of phases, right? You have a loss, and you let go. Then you go into a neutral phase, but then you get a new beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You do not get to have a new beginning
Mm-hmm.
if you do not get to a place acceptance, because if you don't have acceptance, then you can't do what I demonstrate in therapy sessions. I will get one of these big books. See the big dictionary over there?
Yep.
And I will put it in somebody's hand, and I'll say, pretend it's heavy, and you've got your grip on it. And then I'll get something really cool like my Steelers cup over there. That's a cool cup. There's a cool cup. And I would pretend now, if it's not cool to you, but pretend that this is something really, really valuable. And I will hold the handle in front of them, and inherently they look at me like, what do I do? Right? And what do they have to do? Well, they have to put the book down.
Right.
And you can't have the cup and the book because your hands are occupied. And it's a really visual way to really demonstrate exactly what you're talking about with You Moved My Cheese.
Yeah. Because one thing constant, right? We all know the one constant is changes happen. It's inevitable. It's like, how are you going to deal with it?
Absolutely. So when in my life have I resisted? I didn't do the 3 questions yet, did I? I don't think I did. So the questions we were asking is, when in my life have I resisted reality instead of accepting it, and what impact did it have? I can tell you it ain't a good one. Do I equate acceptance with giving up, or do I see it as a form of strength? Can acceptance be strength? I want to hammer that point home, to be honest with you. And then 3, how might practicing acceptance improve my mental health and relationships? I hope you figured that out already a lot. But let's hone in on what this means. It is a wonderful therapy question. Generally speaking, if you're thinking about something, struggling with something, have emotional energy on something, ask yourself this question, because I've been asked in my own therapy before this once with this topic, and I was like, oh, I have no idea. That's a good question. What does X mean to you? Right?
Yeah.
If you're not aware of that, and usually people aren't, and then you're dealing with a loss or with it, or it's gone away, or, like, what does this really mean to me is a really, really good question to ask. What does my kids not living at the house, what does that mean to me? Well, you'll come up with some stuff. The person who's crying probably means, well, it means I'm not important. It means I have no process task. I have no role now. My role is ended. I'm no longer mom. Yeah, it's not the reality, but it might be what is being meant in your mind.
Right.
So that's an awesome question. What does acceptance mean? People have weird thoughts about that, right?
I think everybody thinks of it differently, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because some people can grow, they look at it as an opportunity to grow stronger, glass half full kind of person,
Yep.
or glass half empty kind of person.
It's crushing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you either, if it's positive, see it as acceptance. If it's not positive, it'll be like reluctance kind of thing. Because there are people who will go through this reluctantly, right? They'll just kind of let it do whatever. Like, it changes the whole aspect, right? That mental health. When I worked corporate, they had this whole thing where it was, one of the things they talked about for team building was assume positive intent. Like, when you have someone you're working with, and that changed the whole dynamic of, like, when your coworker sends an email to your boss, instead of thinking, oh, this guy's trying to backstab me, think, oh, well, he forgot to CC me, or he's really trying to help the team, blah, 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 right? So the idea with this is acceptance. It's looking at transition, and you're looking at it from a positive light versus a negative light, right? That acceptance to me is a positive reaction to what's happening.
It's wild to me that people would see such a thing as, hey, I'm not fighting it. I'm just going with it. I'm passive. Weak. Not standing up for myself. Now, don't get me wrong, there are things that we don't want to just passively accept. If you're being hit at home, it's domestic violence. We don't accept that. We protect, we move, we take actions. But, it definitely, when you're in a place of acceptance, doesn't mean you're anywhere passive. Or let's talk about Mothers Against Drunk Driving, for instance, right? MAD is an acronym, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I don't know if they're still in operation.
They are, I think.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that was an 80s thing.
It was.
This was a bunch of pissed off mothers that got together, because, back in the day, the police officer would be like, hey, don't be stupid. Just drive the back roads. Come on.
Right.
What drinking and driving was literally kind of in the realm of acceptable. Crazy. It's funny to me to hear the kids' perspective on it now. They'll drive high on weed, not think anything of it, but they would never think about driving drunk. You know, it's different. But they weren't passive. But they accepted their child's death, and they took action. And they made an entire movement from it that was absolutely a big part of why we now understand as a culture, you just don't drink and drive. It's not a thing. Don't do that. Right? So acceptance can be amazing change.
Mm-hmm.
Transformational change, honestly. But you can't get that new until you stop and accept.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that going once again, acceptance is a positive way that you handle it, right? And I think that's it gives you a lot more control when you accept something versus going with it, right? When you really, really accept it, that puts the power back on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And so when you're lost and when you're feeling like you have nothing to do, like you're just completely outside of your control, the one thing you can control is whether you accept what's happening or if you don't, right? If you accept it, your life's going to be better because you're looking at it from a positive, right? When our kid went to college, if he didn't accept the change, he's going to sit in his dorm room and be a bump on a log. If we didn't accept the change of him leaving, my wife and I would just be sad and just sit in our bedroom crying all the time, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't get to enjoy the new norms and the new pieces, right? So that's the part. Acceptance is control. You're actually controlling the outcome of this transition, of this grief, accepting that you've lost someone and there's a new life ahead of me, or a new job, or a new this or new that. That's what you have to understand is with acceptance. It's putting yourself back into control of what you have going forward.
I love that a lot. And I think, honestly, I was just listening to you, and I'm thinking, like, this was the favorite of my 3 shows for sure, easily, because of exactly that. Like, I don't suggest a lot of passive thoughts. I don't look at, like, you think, like, oh, therapy, liberal, mental health, like, feel good, whatever. No. What action can we take? I love the Serenity Prayer. So I was just listening to you reciting the Serenity Prayer in my head over and over again. Like, serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can. People don't usually have that wisdom to know the difference between the two. That's the real rub.
That's where you have to put the effort in, right? To understand that difference, right? Knowledge versus wisdom. You know that one? Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit, but wisdom is knowing not to put it in fruit salad.
I think I have heard that before, but not for a long time. I think you're right. Yeah. It just doesn't work real well with honeydew, does it?
No.
But it is a fruit. It's just not fair. It's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer of fruit. Wow. Okay. Save me, Kyle.
Sorry.
It's getting a little weird. The myth is that this means you're giving up. The myth is that you're in resignation. The myth is that you're avoiding things. Now, you can do all of those words when you're dealing with something. But acceptance is not that.
I think acceptance is
different.
strength.
100%.
Yep.
Like, very strong. How can you demonstrate your resiliency? I mean, really healthy people get knocked to the floor. And they're really healthy people because they figure out how to, okay, I'm not going to keep on fighting because it's going to keep on knocking to the floor. I'm going to get up and we're going to go in a different direction and accept this change.
Absolutely. Something as simple as eyeglasses.
Oh. That
Right?
hurts.
Trust me, it hurt.
Oh, that hurts.
But
man.
I had to accept it.
Really don't like it. Yeah, because, honestly, it's not really talked about a lot, but men and hormone changes are real.
Yeah.
And it is all over the place when you really get into it. Starts at about 40, y'all.
Yeah, it does.
And women get thrown deeply into it quickly. And, yeah, you can't see anymore. You can't have any freaking appetite. You're having 500 less calories. Your hair drops out. You can't
Turns gray.
see anymore. I'm disturbed about the seeing part.
Yeah.
My reading glasses, I hate them.
Okay, so I have a question. Do you guys both have really good vision normally?
Yes.
I did.
Yes.
Okay, so my wife and I are going through that because she does art and she's having her visions going. And I'm like, but you don't understand. I've been blind since 3rd grade. If I can't see reading, okay, it's just something else. Like, because I'm starting to notice it more a little bit, but it's just once again perfect eyesight. You guys have been blessed and lucky to have that, right?
Kyle, he's worse than my freaking ex, brother. I got to tell you, he's worse than my freaking ex right now.
But
I get no sympathy whatsoever.
It's just more dramatic for you guys because
Yes,
I'm
it's
used to not being able to
horrible.
see. So it's like, okay, it's different. But because of the it's more of a shock to you guys, right?
It
My
is.
wife's
It
the
is
same way,
very
right?
100%.
So it's going to be a harder transition for you guys, and it's hard for you guys to accept it because you've never had to wear glasses till you're 45. I've been wearing them since I was like 8.
I'm legit struggling with this one, man. I really am. I don't want to accept it either. I mean, oh God.
But you cannot accept it and struggle with reading and make your eyes hurt, give you headaches, or you can accept it, go buy some stupid glasses, make it stop, and you'll be better for it.
When I couldn't read my watch and my arm can only
Yeah,
go
it's
so
just-
far.
right,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
that-
And I'm like,
you know,
okay.
I'd rather extend my arm out than get glasses, right?
Right,
You'd have a
right.
surgery,
That's
make your
what
arms
we
longer.
do. I'm literally in this right now. Now, I will say, I have a pair of reading glasses in my bag. I have a pair of reading glasses on my desk. I got 4 locations at the house, so I don't know. I'm on my way, Neil, but like it sucks.
Then it gets to prescription sunglasses. You just wait.
Oh God, we're not going there. No, I'm not that bad. They call that denial. I don't see it. Get it? See, done it anyway. Where did we land? We very much. Hey, we read the book, Neil. This is the one where we read chapter 11, accepting things as part of your emotional growth. I didn't mention that. I got a book, Neil, or what's your name, Kyle? I wrote 2. I got books. Go look them up. They're cool. Through a Therapist's Eyes. One's on marriage. One's on self. You know, I think it's got a lot of good nuggets in there. We actually spent time on chapter 11 because, you know, it's actually probably one of my favorite chapters. But mindfulness, journaling again, you know, breathing and grounding, I think maybe is one to kind of highlight with the idea of, you know, acceptance, because you're in that last phase that he was talking about when you're doing life transitions. And, you know, sometimes you really just need to stop and breathe.
Yeah.
You know, let this wash over you. By the way, the riptide thing, love the metaphor, but they actually tell you to like swim to the left or the right, don't they?
No, that's in a river. I think if you're getting swept away, you swim to the bank versus fighting against it. But in Riptide, you just let it take you out, and then after you take it out, then you swim around it.
Okay, I always thought that if you get caught in the riptide, your panic makes you fight against the current,
Right,
and
so-
that's what kills you. But if you literally go a foot to the right, you're fine.
Maybe it depends on how big the Riptide is. But
Yeah,
the
that's
idea
true.
is you kind of, once again, you let it get carried away, right? And then like in a river, if you're in a big river and it goes sweeping you, like you're not going to swim up. You just start swimming towards one of the banks.
Yeah, you go diagonal.
Yeah, you just go. You let the water take you. You just swim one direction, right? You still have to go with the flow because you're not going to fight.
You're not going to fight the current.
So.
Yeah, and life current can be pretty powerful too. So stop and just breathe. Literally, if you're in water like that, I mean, you know, if you just stop and you ever hear of dead man's float? It's
Oh, yeah.
actually a move that you know I learned in lifeguard school. Just float. Literally, just hold your breath. Then you'll be fine. But people are shallow breathing, panicking, you know, railing, you know, just causing more of a problem. It's what we do. We just cause, you know, you move my cheese and then I'm upset and now I'm just going to go back to the same cabinet every daggum time where I'm be frustrated every time I go to the cabinet and there's no cheese.
And sometimes just doing something different. Taking your mind off of whatever is on your mind.
Well, like that.
Yeah, so like if you always going through the same motions every single day, what if you did something different that takes your mind off of whatever you're thinking about?
Along those lines, I'm reminding ourselves, we talked about like literally how you phrase things in your head. If you sit there and say, okay, well, this is what's happening versus this should not be the case. This should not happen. You know?
Right.
I told the story in the chapter there of like being in a car wreck with this girl after she told me, I got the friendship speech, man. 360 to car, icy road. It was a horrible thing. And it was so surreal because I sat there. I remember this like yesterday. And the same freaking song was on the radio. And I'm like, okay, this did not happen. I literally just sat there for about what seemed like forever, denying that I just wrecked my car, you know, like my mom's going to kill me. And this didn't happen. So I had to get out of the car.
Yeah. Right.
I had to get out of the car and move along. So, closing thoughts, comments. A fun group of shows, I think, Neil. And John, we miss you, brother, already. You know, little moment of that. Shout out to you. Super glad that we get to keep him, though, and continue on with the new formats. Closing thoughts, comments. Yeah.
Let you start.
It's if you're going through changes right now, catch these last 3 shows. They're really, really powerful. Once again, it's when you lose something, you're gonna grieve, then you're gonna transition, and then you just have to accept it. And I think these are 3 great shows. If you're going through something, go watch these 3 shows, and it'll really help you with a lot of different things. So yeah,
It's a good combo.
great month.
Yeah, I think these topics are absolutely terrific because everybody faces them. It doesn't matter. It's not. You don't necessarily have to grieve a person. You can grieve, the loss of anything, loss of a job or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But you have to understand how you need to do that in order to build back better. And that's what I think a lot of people need to understand is just that we've got to grow. If we don't understand what is causing us to grieve and we don't accept it, then we're never going to grow.
Love that. So, by the way, we're not doing the competition we think we do in the show, so there's no winner here on this.
All right, fair.
This is just a thing. But we have grieved, we have transitioned, I think we have accepted, and now the new cool thing is Mr. Kyle King is with us for Month in Review. So welcome, very appreciative of your time, effort, and energy. Looking forward to see where this takes us.
Loving this.
I think it's going to be cool, right?
Love it.
All right, stay well, take care. We will see you guys.